Welcome to the Lakers Nation news feed. My name is Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Today we are celebrating the Lakers' big win over the Phoenix Suns. Before we dive into everything, though, go check out greats.com for a phenomenal pair of shoes. I have a pair myself, and they are absolutely wonderful. Get compliments on them all the time. All you got to do is go to greats.com, use the promo code LakersNation. You get 15% off. They've partnered with us. Very cool company. Definitely recommend you going and checking them out. Well, we are here at Talking Stick Resort Arena. I've got Lakers Nation reporter Serena Winters here with me. Serena, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Trevor. First of all, I was kind of hoping you'd bring me a pair of great sneakers. What's the deal here? You have me on the podcast and I don't get hooked up with any sneakers?
Those are actually waiting for us back in LA. So we got to wait till we get back there to get those. But this was a great win for the Lakers. They didn't go 0-4 on this road trip. How big of a deal is that for them?
Here's the thing. Having to come back home without one win on the road, that's not good for team morale, especially when you're starting the season 500 and you've got all this talk about, okay, the Lakers are maybe a little bit better than we thought they were. I didn't expect the Lakers to go 3-1 on this road trip. I thought, 2-2 was a possibility, but I think that getting this win against Phoenix, a team that we know the Lakers could beat, and not coming home with that 0-4 record, I think that was actually a pretty big deal.
So for the mentality of this team moving forward now, as they head into a week that's got some winnable games in it, is this something that can springboard them into maybe a few more wins before their schedule turns rough in December?
I don't know if this win over the Suns is going to springboard into more wins. What I think could, if we want to use the term springboard into more wins, might be what you just said, that the Lakers have this homestand, right? That they have to get these wins at home, because if you're a Lakers fan and you were around here for last season, then we all remember that dreaded December, right? And I think the Lakers went something like 1-11 or 1-12 in December. They had that just like nasty road trip. So for me, they have to get these wins at home, because as everybody knows, it is much easier to win at home than it is on the road. And especially for a young team, it's very important for a young team to win at home, because those wins on the road are even harder to come by. When you have that veteran team that has that experience, it's not as hard, but for this team it is. They've got to get these wins.
Right, yeah. They're in a situation where they can't really afford to let any winnable games slip away, because their margin for error is just so small. Now, one of the topics after the game was not just the fact that they won the game, but how they won the game. This was a change in the rotation that we saw from Luke Walton. We ended up seeing Lonzo Ball not go back into the game in the fourth quarter, didn't play down the stretch. Instead, he went with Jordan Clarkson. Is that a big deal? Should minutes be funneled towards Lonzo to further his development, or is it okay that he sits out in the fourth quarter every now and then if it means the team gets a win?
Hey, look, back in the day, the job of rookies was to sit and watch, right? It's a different era now where these young kids are being handed the keys so early and thrown into these scenarios, but when you really think about it, how it used to be was the rookies come in, they sit, they learn, the veterans are the ones that get to close games. And it's different now, because when you have a guy like Lonzo, who the Lakers think is the key to this franchise, yes, he's going to get a ton of minutes, and yes, you need to develop him, but that does not mean that in order for Lonzo to be the best player he can be, that he has to close every single game this season. It doesn't mean that. And it also doesn't mean that he can't also learn some things in the bench. And what does that do for the team when you've got guys that are playing really well, right? Like Jordan Clarkson, who has been playing his tail off all year long, and we saw it again tonight with he gets a new season high and plays really well off the bench. What does it say about Luke if then he starts pulling the guys that are winning this game for him, that are playing hard for him, that are playing well for him, and then what? You're going to pull them out so that you can give a rookie some more development minutes, when really what the Lakers needed, I think, more than development, was this win on the road. They needed to come home with a win more than they needed, hey, let's make sure Lonzo gets some extra development time here in that fourth quarter. I think that's more valuable, because it creates the team chemistry there. It creates the bonding there. It shows that Luke will reward me if I play hard for him and all of those things. So I don't see an issue at all with Lonzo sitting in the fourth. And I also love that Lonzo doesn't see an issue with sitting in the fourth, or at least that's what he tells the media. However he actually feels when he goes home and sleeps at night, we don't know. But when we ask him about does it matter to you, it's no, the team won, and that's the type of mentality you want from your rookie and from the guy that's going to be leading your team in the future.
Well, those are some great points there. I mean, first and foremost, Luke Walton even mentioned that he thinks this is part of a rookie's development or a young player's development, is watching players like Corey Brewer, veterans who come in and are ready to play despite not playing very much recently, gets in there, works hard, makes things happen, says that sends a good message to the youngsters that are on the bench. And as far as Lonzo specifically goes, you mentioned that he himself didn't have an issue with it. And that instantly made me think of Lonzo. In his interviews, I've yet to hear him really get tripped up at all by any questions. It seems like he always has the right answer, and really all he cares about, whether he gets a triple-double or only scores 2 points, it doesn't matter. For him, all he cares about is the team winning. Has that been your assessment of him as well, and do you think he's genuine with that?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that Lonzo always has the right answer, because I am in a lot of media scrums. I've done a lot of interviews with Lonzo, and I've transcribed tons and tons of Lonzo question and answers. And I can't say it's always the right answer, because a lot of times he doesn't necessarily answer the question, or if you've heard, a lot of times it's like 3-word answers and all of that. With that being said, I'm not trying to knock Lonzo by saying that. I'm more so just saying that I do like that he has the composure to not give in, right? To be able to say some things that might make headlines. He's just, for as much as the spotlight has been on him, he does not have like that spotlight quote, right? Where he's trying to make headlines in that way. And I think for media sometimes it's actually hard, right? Because you're trying to, make a story, or you're trying to get a quote on whatever it is. But what I will say that I do like about him also is that he really likes to talk about his teammates a lot more than he likes talking about himself. And I think that goes to show a very important trait in him. And seeing that in his interviews, he also has that same demeanor on the floor, right? Where going back to him not caring about getting his own and just wanting to get everybody else involved, and that's when he's at his best. Well, that's also how he's comfortable with the media. He's more comfortable answering questions about his teammates than he is about himself. So with that in mind, I mean, I think he's handled it well. With the amount of media that's around him all the time, I think he's handled that pretty well. And actually, I would say his answers have probably gotten like twice as long since media day. So he's adding to his vocabulary as well.
Yeah, he is. He's not a guy who likes to ramble on at all. That's for sure. He's very quick and very short with his answers. Yes, definitely a man of few words.
Except when he's got his rap game going and he's spitting his own lyrics.
Then you get him to start talking a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Lonzo does not say a whole heck of a lot in his answers, but he is pretty straight to the point. And as you mentioned, his answers when he's talking match up with his play on the court. And that's a pretty cool thing to see from a player who's so young, to see that kind of maturity. And of course, he does say that it doesn't really matter to him what he does as long as his team gets the win. Now, speaking of the rotation changing, we know that Lonzo didn't play much in the fourth quarter, but we also saw a new wrinkle from Luke Walton, and that was, I believe it was the first time we've seen all season Julius Randle actually playing power forward, or if he has, it hasn't been for very long.
Much, yeah.
Hasn't been a whole lot. So we saw Julius Randle for long stretches at power forward next to Andrew Bogut at the center in the second unit. And we think that was probably to match up with Alex Len and Dragan Bender on the Suns bench. But what was your take on that rotation? Did you like that pairing? Is it something you think they should go back to, or is that just kind of a stay away from, only an emergency type situation?
I think with that matchup, I think it worked. I think if you look at the box sheet, you might not think it did, because Julius didn't exactly have the best shooting night. But if you watch the game, and Andrew Bogut is such a smart player on and off the court, and I talked to him after the game specifically about what you just asked me about that lineup, and he said he loved it, and what he loved about Julius was that he was so aggressive that even though Julius was missing his shots, what that did was that opened up the game for Jordan Clarkson and Corey Brewer. And I asked Julius also about that lineup with Bogut, and he said that Bogut is just so intelligent out there. And I'm sure you've seen it when you've watched the game, is sometimes when Bogut's in, I like to just watch him because he's so incredibly vocal out there. And it's like he's a point guard out there, just pointing where guys should be in the right spots. You know, he's at the elbow, he's got the ball in his hand, he's barking at Julius to get down to the block, wherever it is, because he sees an opening. And he's just, you can tell he's so smart out there, and a lot of times the offense runs through him. But what Julius said when I talked to him tonight is he said that Bogut kind of point guards their defense. And that is such a big thing for the Lakers. And so for me, I actually kind of like that. I do still want to see Julius more at the backup five, but I thought in a situation like tonight with how the Suns were playing that rotation worked and that Julius and Bogut played pretty well off of each other.
Floor spacing could be an issue long term if you're running that lineup all the time, but yeah, I mean, it worked against the Suns. It was necessary, and as you mentioned, I mean, the Lakers' defense has really been the key to their success this season, and if Andrew Bogut can be that guy to come in, and even for only, 10 minutes, I think tonight he played, 17 minutes? So if he's able to play that many minutes, 16 minutes for Bogut tonight, he had 7 boards and 2 blocks, he only took 1 shot, but if he's able to be that anchor for the defense and keep them in line, then that could end up resulting in more wins.
You missed one big stat there.
What's that?
The one big stat is that he was plus 15. Plus 15.
He is.
So when you look at the box score and you see, Bogut was, it's so interesting because when Bogut gets in the game, I look at my Twitter mentions and it's usually blowing up. Like fire Luke Walton, get Bogut out of the game, right? And yeah, like you said, he only took 1 shot, missed his 1 shot, but he was not in there to make shots. He was in there to be a plus 15. He was in there to anchor that defense. He was in there to make sure that guys were in the right spots, to be incredibly aggressive. And what Luke also said after the game is that he puts him in there when he feels like he needs that toughness and that scrappiness from Bogut. And obviously, he gave that to them. And it's kind of funny, too, because when you watch him, sometimes you're like, is he going to be okay out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, if you're watching it and you run up and down the court and you're like, like, is he injured? Like, is he good?
It's like, kind of a shuffle.
It is. It's like, are we sure he's good? You know what I mean? But at the same time, his role, he knows what his role is, and he is playing it well. And when I talked to him after the game, he also said, look, like, sometimes I know I'm not going to be playing, but I still know that what my role is to be a veteran is to be the loud guy on the bench, to harp on things in practice. And the fact that he's accepting this role of not knowing whether or not he's going to play, and Luke understanding like tonight he could use him, and then Luke saying after the game, look, he's a pro, he stays ready, and then you've got guys like Julius Randle. Well, if I was Julius and I saw that, hey, this guy Bogut, who's been in the league a lot longer than me, who's a veteran, and he's not complaining at all when he's on the bench and getting even less minutes than I am, that would motivate me even more to do the most that I could possibly do with my bench minutes.
So like Brewer and Clarkson, he's setting the example.
Yeah, and you mentioned, and look, you look at Brewer too, and we could talk about Brewer all game about his energy, but look at his box score as well. He was a plus 13. So you're looking at those guys, right? The Corey Brewers and the Andrew Bogut's and what they're doing on that end of the floor. You may not see it in the points. With Corey, we did tonight. He 13 points. I think that's the most he scored this season.
His first 3 of the season.
That's what it was. You don't see him blow up in the stat sheet all the time, but he is that guy who brings the energy. And what I will also say about Corey is he always has a smile on his face, man. Like pregame, postgame, midgame, he's got such positive energy, and young guys need that, especially on a losing team.
Absolutely. That's a great point, especially once the season turns to January and February and we get into the dog days of the season. It's going to be important to have pieces like that can keep the guys up and keep them motivated. Now, let's wrap up here. The Lakers are now 6-8 on the season. They have 6 wins, 8 losses, 14 games in. Obviously, still plenty of basketball left to play. But quickly, what's your assessment so far of the season?
I would say the good is that they are already better defensively than last year. And that is to me, that's the most important thing, because they were so atrocious defensively last year. And as someone who has played basketball and followed basketball my whole life, it was so frustrating to me to see a young group of guys where, look, okay, I get it. It's okay if you're not good offensively. It's okay if you're still trying to figure out. It's even okay to me if you don't know exactly where you're supposed to be at on defense and you're still figuring out the rotations and you're still figuring out how to defend certain guys one-on-one. What was not okay to me was the effort. They were not giving it last year. It frustrated me so much. So to finally see, like, okay, at least so far they've got that, and on top of having the effort, they're also pretty damn good at the defensive rotations and what that Luke's been implementing, the switches, right? So for me, that's a positive. I would say that, as you would expect with any young team, it's hard because you can't get too high and you can't get too low. You can't get too high when the Lakers are on a 4-game winning streak. You can't get too high when the Lakers are 500, because if they're going to go back on the road and they're a young team, expect them to lose some games, which means they need to be winning their games at home, which goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the season. More positives, I think that although fans seem to be up in arms about Lonzo Ball, with the exception of the triple-double, because then he quiets the haters, I think that Lonzo has done a pretty damn good job. I think that he sees the floor in a way that I haven't seen a young point guard see the floor in a long time. And I think that we're going to see some really big things out of him in the future. I think that Jordan Clarkson has done a really good job embracing the role that he has and doing more, which I actually wrote about last week. Somehow he is doing more this year with less minutes, and that's a really big thing. Julius, we're finally starting to see that. We didn't see that at the beginning of the year. And obviously, man, Kuzma's a freaking steal of the draft.
Yeah,
so
27.
That's a positive, right? So we're seeing a lot, like, it's mostly positives with the exception of when the defense goes out the window or when they have these bad games, but I'm kind of optimistic.
Yeah, I think you have to be. I mean, this team, their defense, their defensive rating, they've been in the top 10 just about all season, which is unheard of. They were dead last year, and now if they can get their fast break offense is okay. If they can get their half court offense to start clicking a little bit, they're going to start picking up some wins. So yeah, I have to be pretty pleased with what we've seen so far. Well, Serena, we should probably wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming on here and doing this and joining me here in Phoenix.
Of course. Maybe next time we'll have our greats on from greats.com.
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that, greats.com. Don't forget, guys, use that promo code LakersNation. Get 15% off. They really are some phenomenal shoes. That's going to do it for us today. Lakers get a big win over the Phoenix Suns. Next up is a showdown with the Philadelphia 76ers. My name is Trevor Lane. This has been the Lakers Nation newsfeed. And don't forget, guys, go to LakersNation.com for all the latest Lakers news. See ya.